Hi, guys. Let's go with Chapter 2 of Owen Foote's Super Spy, and it's called The Ultimate Spy Test. What did you say? I said, how are you? Oh, Owen frowned. Why would a spy want to ask another spy how they were? I don't know, said Joseph. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Oh, said Owen again. He thought for a minute. Maybe we shouldn't have dots and dashes for every letter, he said finally. Maybe we should have them for the whole sentence. That might be better, Joseph said. He rubbed his eyes. My eyelids were getting kind of tired. Owen looked at the list of international Morse code symbols he'd copied from his book. This is worthless, he said decisively. He took 2 new pieces of paper from his drawer. Let's both make a list so we can practice at home in the mirror and stuff. He handed a piece to Joseph. Now, what do we need to say to another when we're spying? How about, let's get out of here, said Joseph. Okay, 1 blink of the left eye means, let's get out of here. Owen and Joseph both wrote it down. And 1 blink of the right eye means, stop making so much noise. They scribbled some more. And how about 2 dots and a dash of the left eye for, get off my foot, said Owen, picking up speed. And 2 dots and a dash of the right eye for, I think someone's coming. Joseph wrote feverishly to keep up with him. Here he is trying his Morse code. When Owen stopped, they inspected the series of dots and dashes on their paper. What about, I have to go to the bathroom, said Joseph. He saw Owen's face. I can't help it. Sometimes I do. I know. Owen thought for a minute. How about both eyes blinking once at the same time? Yeah, and lots of jiggling up and down. They laughed. Wait a minute. We left out yes and no, said Owen. We should have done the simple ones first. Come on. He stood up and put his list in his pocket. I told Anthony we'd be at Uncle's house for 4 o'clock. We'll have to work this out as we go along. Joseph jumped up and down and followed him down the stairs. We're going to the gallows, Owen shouted. Be home by 5, came his mom's voice from the living room. I just thought of something, Joseph said when they got on the road. When you say left eye, do you mean the person's left eye who is blinking, or the eye on the left when you're looking at them? The left eye of the person who's blinking, said Owen. So it's the right eye to the person who's looking at them. Right. That could get confusing, Joseph said doubtfully. You know, Anthony, he had to wear a red rubber band around his left hand to remind him which one it was until last year. We have to practice, that's all. Owen turned into Wuthering Heights. It was a new neighborhood filled with huge houses and tiny yards. The house Anthony's uncle was building was at the end of the road. It wouldn't be much fun spying around here, said Owen, looking around. All you'd have to do is look out your window. Yeah, and even if you were just looking at some birds, everyone would think you were spying on them. If that was my bedroom, Owen said, pointing to a window in the side of a white house they were passing, and that was yours, he pointed to a window in the house across a narrow strip of land from it, we could use our Morse code. Cool, said Joseph. At night we could use flashlights. Yeah, and the real Morse code. Hey, you guys, over here. A hoarse whisper came from behind a house with a for sale sign in front of it. It was Anthony. He beckoned them madly. My uncle's house is the next one over, he said excitedly when they crouched down next to him. There's a dumpster in the backyard we can hide behind. He was in camouflage from his head to his feet. He had on a camouflage hat, camouflage vest, camouflage pants. Even his boots were camouflage. Professional camouflage, like you'd buy in a hunting store. His canteen was dappled green and brown, too. So were the binoculars he held up for them to see. My mom and dad got me those for scoring the most goals on my hockey team, he said. They're really powerful. Want to try them? Let's just get going, said Owen. I have to be home in half an hour. Okay, follow me. Anthony started to creep along the back of the house. Aren't you going to wear your camouflage? Joseph asked Owen as they followed Anthony. Owen had put it in his pocket before they had left the house. Are you joking? Owen said it loud enough for Anthony to hear. It's ridiculous to wear camouflage around here. There aren't any trees. It really bugged him that Anthony always had the best equipment. Anthony acted like that was all it took to be good at something. But spying wasn't about equipment. It was about bravery and cunning. It was about using your head in a pinch. They reached the corner of the house. The dumpster was straight ahead, about 30 feet away. They could hear loud hammering coming from inside the house. A table saw's shrill cried out from the garage. Somewhere, a radio was playing. The familiar surge of excitement Owen always felt when he was about to zero in on his target erased any thoughts of being angry. There was nothing between him and the dumpster, overflowing with sheetrock and scraps of lumber, except for open space. Lots of open space. If anyone came out of the house before they reached cover, they were goners. Now, he hissed. He lit out for the dumpster. Anthony and Joseph were right behind him. They dove in behind it like baseball players sliding into second base. They fell against it, breathless. Owen rested his head against the dumpster and waited for his heart to stop racing. That was a close one, said Anthony. Yeah, said Joseph. The three of them grinned at one another. They heard a man's voice inside the house, and then someone laughed. But no one came out. They sat there for a while listening. Anthony took out his binoculars and started fiddling with the lenses. The radio changed from music to the news. Owen pulled his last list out of his pocket. We came up with a special code, he said. Maybe we should practice it while we wait. Anthony gave it a quick glance. How do you say, this is boring, he said. All we're spying on is our house. Okay. Owen stuffed his list back into his pocket. Let's get closer. Closer? Said Joseph. I kind of like it here. Well, you can stay then, said Anthony. He was already on his feet. I say, let's go look in a window. A window? Joseph's voice was a yelp. What window? Anthony's right, said Owen. It's not really spying if we don't see anybody. He pulled Joseph to his feet. We'll run up, look in a window, and leave. It'll be fine. That window there, said Anthony. He pointed to a picture window right next to the front door. You guys ready? Ready, said Owen. Not ready, said Joseph. Go! They dashed out from behind the dumpster and headed for the window. Owen reached it first. He looked inside. A worker was standing with his back to them. He was so close Owen could have reached out and touched him. Owen ducked down. He motioned for Anthony and Joseph to do the same. But it was too late. Hey, you kids! Shouted a deep voice above their heads. Get out of here! It was hard to tell who shrieked the loudest. Owen was halfway across the yard with Anthony and Joseph on his heels. He could hear their feet pounding the pavement as they raced down the street. He didn't stop running until he reached the entrance to Wuthering Heights. Then he threw himself on the ground, exhausted. Anthony and Joseph fell in a heap next to him. It was a few minutes before any of them could talk. Did you see how big that guy was? Anthony said at last. I thought he was coming after us. Joseph's face was bright red. I thought I was going to have a heart attack when he yelled like that, Anthony said. I couldn't believe it, said Owen. I could have tapped him on the shoulder. He was so close. He sat up. The thing about spying was, the more terrified you were while you were doing it, the greater you felt when it was over. That was so cool, he said. Yeah, Anthony and Joseph looked at him and grinned. They slapped palms. I better get going, Owen said. He stood up. I have to be home by 5. I've got to go too, said Anthony. His house was in the opposite direction. Let's spy on someone in the woods next time, so I can use my gear. See ya. That was a lot more exciting than spying on my parents, Joseph said as he and Owen walked along. His face was still red, but he sounded happy. I never knew I could run that fast. It's like my dad says, said Owen. You never know what you can do until you have to. He was thinking about what they'd done, what they should have done differently. Next time, we have to remember to use our Morse code. We didn't use it at all. I guess when someone yells at you about 2 inches from your head, you don't really think to say, "Let's get out of here," said Joseph. At least, not in words. You can say that again, said Owen. I can see me now. I would have been standing there like an idiot, blinking my head off with you and Anthony halfway down the street. Owen laughed. Yeah, that huge guy is looming over you. He raised his arms in the air and moved toward Joseph like a monster. And you're going, blink, 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 blink. What's wrong, kid? Joseph said in a deep voice. Got something in your eye? They cracked each other up until Joseph turned down the street. It was amazing how funny everything seemed when you just escaped incredible danger. How did your camouflage work? Said Lydia. She had stopped in the door to Owen's room on her way back from her shower. I didn't use it. Owen kept his head down and wrote carefully. Mr. Foote had said he would make copies of their code at work tomorrow. Owen had been trying since dinner to come up with more things to add. Why not? I'm sure the workers could have used a good laugh. There weren't any trees. Owen finished copying the last symbol and looked up. Anthony had on professional camouflage from his head to his feet. I bet his underwear were camouflage. Wait till you get to middle school. Lydia came into his room and perched on the end of his bed. There are tons of kids like Anthony. Everyone has designer labels on their clothing, their shoes, their hats, their watches. Maybe I'll skip middle school, said Owen. Anthony drives me crazy. Remember Amanda Fuller? The one I went to camp with in 5th grade? She was like that. Lydia took the towel hanging around her neck and rubbed her wet hair. You're lucky. Boys just brag about their stuff. Girls cut you out of their group if you don't have the right things. You probably don't want to be part of their group anyway, do you? No, but you don't want them to make the decision for you, Lydia said. Anthony's parents give him money for good grades, said Owen. He has his own computer and his own VCR. They just gave him a pair of binoculars for scoring the most goals in hockey. It felt good to be able to talk to Lydia about Anthony. She didn't lecture him like his mom would have. His parents are jerks, said Lydia. I remember his father standing on the sidelines screaming at the poor kid when you guys played soccer in kindergarten. Kindergarten, for Pete's sake! And all his mother does is work. It would be nice to get $5 for A's, though, wouldn't it? Owen said. You and I would clean up. Maybe, but then you'll never have invented your underwear mask or any of your other crazy inventions, she said, standing up. You'd be as boring as Anthony. If you really like it, I could make you one, said Owen. I'd sell it to you for $5. Dream on, Owen, Lydia said. She headed down the hall toward her room. $2, Owen shouted. Lydia closed her door. Darn! He could have used that money to buy some wire for the human battery experiment he wanted to try, just in case the Morse code didn't catch on. Owen took his spy journal off his desk and flopped down on his bed. Lydia thought Anthony was boring. Owen could tell she thought Owen, was interesting, even though she didn't say so. She liked his inventions, too. He tapped his pencil against the page. Spying on the Gallows house had been kind of boring until that man yelled at them. Then it became terrifying. Therefore, the scarier the person they spied on, the more exciting it would be. Who did they know who would be really scary? Later that night, the answer woke him up out of a sound sleep. Owen sat straight up in his bed and stared into the dark as if he had seen a ghost. Mr. Mahoney, the principal of Chesterfield School. Just thinking about spying on Mr. Mahoney sent a shiver down his spine. Mr. Mahoney was awesome. He used to be in the Marines. He still was, 1 weekend a month. From the muscles in his chest and arms, Owen bet he lifted weights on all the other weekends. Owen liked Mr. Mahoney a lot. Most of the kids did. but they were scared of him too. He lay slowly back down and pulled his covers up to his chin. Spying on Mr. Mahoney would be the ultimate spy test, the one that separated the spies with nerves of steel from all the rest. He could hardly wait to tell Joseph and Anthony about it tomorrow. He could hardly wait to see their faces. That's the end of Chapter 2, Owen Foote, Super Spy. Who would you spy on if you had the chance? Would it be your school principal? Comment, let me know. See you tomorrow.